everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is Fiona at Drawings in a Drawer, where we discuss everything watercolour and more. If you'd like to be notified every time I upload a video, which is on a Sunday, click the notification bell. But I'm also taking this brief window of time to remind you about my free live workshop at the end of May. I will write the dates somewhere on here. And you just have to send me an email at drawingsinadrawr@gmail.com. Everything will be linked down below, including my Patreon, which has the long tutorials, the narrated versions of what you see on here, of most of the paintings you see on here. But now, as usual, let's get into it. Looking back on it, the first few years, maybe year and a half that I painted with watercolour, I really had no clue about how this medium worked. Of course, I knew it reactivated with water and you needed water to get it to flow, but that was basically just as much as I knew, and the way I used it wasn't even really like watercolour. And to compensate for my lack of knowledge, I would use pencil, coloured pencil, to make the colours more intense. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with using coloured pencils on top of your watercolours, but I think you need a certain level of skill to do that. And if you're just starting out, that's definitely not the right place to start. Also, some pencils can be a little bit waxy, which makes the painting shiny, and personally that is something that I don't like. A little like with the Kuretake Gansai Tambi, the Japanese paints, which are really beautiful paints, but they were meant for lettering, so I used them a lot in the beginning, and you do get that sheen on the surface of your paper once you've finished painting. When starting out with watercolour, I really lacked guidance, and for some reason I only took a couple of tutorials. I didn't really take that many tutorials at all. And I think that when you're starting with this medium especially, you really need someone online or in real life to explain the basics. Don't try and work your head around understanding the basics of watercolour. It's so much easier to get someone else to explain them to you, and that speeds up the process by so much. And I promise I'm not just saying this because I have workshops, Patreon, classes on Skillshare, etc. I'm just saying this because I wish someone had explained that to me in the beginning. It really is a kind of shortcut to getting to painting pieces that you are more satisfied with faster. Watercolour is the only medium where we have no way to fix mistakes, or a very limited way. We have the wet and wet technique, which means painting on a wet surface with wet paint. We have the wet and dry technique, which means painting with wet paint on a dry surface. And we have very little control, and that can be very frustrating. That is why watercolour is definitely the hardest medium that we can try to learn on our own. A lot of people ask me about finding their own style, but sometimes I think that question is asked too early. Don't get upset if you don't have your own style in watercolour if you have not yet mastered this medium and watercolour to a certain level. I'm not saying you have to be a professional. We are lifelong learners. We never stop learning, which is an amazing thing. It's beautiful. But you cannot expect to find your own style if you have not learnt how to control, to a certain extent, and how this medium behaves and what actions you can take to try and get it to do what you want it to do. When you start painting with watercolour and you see what you can achieve with this amazing, beautiful medium that can be layered and is so transparent and luminous, you get excited and you want to get the same result. Let's call them the same happy accidents. And that brings up your expectations. So next time you paint and you don't get the same result, which is very common in the beginning, you get stuck, because you think that you are not evolving, that you are not progressing. And you would not imagine how many people give up just because of that, just because they think, I can't do this. And as cliche as it may sound, you can do anything that you set your mind to. Watercolour, or its ancestor, was one of the first forms of artistic expression for human beings who used dirt and soil and water to paint on the inside of caves. So it's definitely something that has been throughout history, throughout the ages, and something that is so powerful. I really would not want anyone to give up because they think they can't do it. Recently, I was listening to a podcast about watercolour in the background, and I was impressed, I was amazed by the amount of knowledge that I picked up just by listening to this in the background. And it's been a few years now that I've been painting. And if I still find guidance and I can still learn so many new things by listening to one podcast, one workshop in the background, I can only imagine if I had done that in the beginning, how many headaches I would have spared myself. So yeah, the secret to watercolour is guidance, is practicing. It's taking tutorials on YouTube, taking tutorials wherever you can find them, or joining a course locally to you. And I'm sorry if this seems like one of those clickbait videos. It's not. One of the secrets of watercolour is definitely, when you're starting out, when you decide you're passionate about it, get someone who's further along in the journey to help you out. It will really save so much time, and not only that, it will save so much expensive watercolour paper that would otherwise end up ripped in the bin. And guys, I've really got to start making my videos longer. It already takes me so much to edit the footage, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of footage, but I have so much more to say. I'm sorry, I promise I will be giving you more tips, more interesting tips next Sunday in my next episode here on YouTube. And also this bunch of flowers that you see here are going to be a tutorial on Patreon starting at $5 a month. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check the link down below. And remember my free workshop coming up on May 26th actually. So the information for that will be down below as well. You can join my newsletter by writing to drawingsinador@gmail.com and telling me you want to join my workshop. And information will follow also to all those who have already written to me and I haven't got back to you yet. I'll be getting back to you this week, I promise. Thank you so much for being here. Your support means the world to me. I will see you next Sunday. Please paint and please take a few tutorials. Bye.